Jedi Squadron is a podcast run by the Anime Secrets website. Check us out at animesecrets.org for more anime, video game, tokusatsu, and now Star Wars content. Remember to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts today.
Hello, new Padawans, and welcome to the Jedi Squadron podcast. Here, you will be taking lessons in the many pieces of the Star Wars universe, whether it be the movies, animated series, video games, comics, and etc. This is your training into becoming a Star Wars fan as part of the Jedi Squadron. May your training go well, and may the Force be with you, young Padawans. What is going on, Star Wars Nation? This is the Jedi Squadron podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Desau.
And I am Rizwan Merchant.
And today we are reviewing Chapter 6 of the Ahsoka series called Far, Far and Away. But before we get started, we do want to say that this is being done in the middle of the Writers Guild and Screen Actors Guild strikes, and we want to make it clear that we are not being paid to promote any of this work. We are doing this to show our support for the very talented actors and very talented writers, without whose talent shows like this would not be possible. And we do mean that, because I mean, at this point, and I know there's only 2 episodes left, but I think we can say that, like, Ahsoka is really starting to come into its own as, like, one of the, maybe the best live action Star Wars series we've gotten.
Yeah, definitely where I'm leaning on it right now. Like, this is starting to get better than Mando season 1, which I know a lot of people have called one of their favorite things to watch in the live action Disney stuff.
I mean, my favorite live action series to watch, and I know I'm going to get a lot of flack from this from some fans, my favorite live action series to watch was Kenobi. I think this is better than Kenobi.
Oh, 100% better than Kenobi. There's no two ways about that. My favorite was Mando season 1, I think. Yeah, that was like, it had a slow beginning, but I just enjoyed not having something set where we know the character's past and the future of the character. But in this case, Ahsoka, we have a lot of rich history with Clone Wars, Rebels,
Yep.
and we know the history of, like, everything from the trilogy movies.
Mm-hmm.
So we know the future and present and past of each of these characters for the most part. Like, we don't know exactly where Ahsoka is during the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
But, we had a pretty good idea of what's going on for the most part. So, no, yeah, I think this has been one really great TV show.
Yep. So to give a recap of what happened in the previous episode, which was called Shadow Warrior. So the first half of the episode was basically just Ahsoka going through training with the spirit of Anakin in the world between worlds. We got some big Clone Wars flashbacks. Everyone had their massive fangasms, including the 2 people who are talking to you on this podcast right now. And then she got returned to the real world, and she was rescued from the ocean by Hera and the Rebel pilots, and they actually located her thanks to Jason, who sensed her through the Force, because this confirms that, well, hints that he has Force sensitivity from his father. And they mentioned Kanan by name in the previous episode. Finally.
It took them long enough.
Yeah. And then with the star map lost, Ahsoka approached this group of Purgles on the planet Cetos, and then she and Hu Yang entered the mouths of one in their ship, and now the Purgles have entered hyperspace, hoping to lead them to this new galaxy, and that's where the episode ended. Sabine didn't appear in this episode at all, so in this episode, even though Ahsoka and Hu Yang do appear in the, like, cold open, I guess you could say, they don't appear for the rest of the episode. Like, this is like a pure Sabine, and with quite a bit of Baylon and Shin's character mixed in there.
Before we get to, like, stuff beyond the cold open, I do want to point out a intentional Easter egg that I think deserves a quick mention here from the last episode that I thought about during the
Yeah.
last week. Um, Ahsoka and Hu Yang being transported to the New Galaxy and the Purgle is a callback to Pinocchio because they're in the belly of a whale
Oh,
and it's a
yeah, that
Disney
makes
Easter
sense.
egg.
Yeah, this is Disney. Yeah,
I
that makes
I
total
just wanted to throw it out there that we had another Easter egg that you and I kind of missed the first time.
yeah.
So yeah,
But anyway, the only real thing that happens in the cold open is that Ahsoka apparently sensed that Sabine willingly gave the star map to Baylon and Shin. Which, if you watched our review of episode 4, then you'll know that that was already established. But she didn't tell Hera, which I guess makes sense. She doesn't want Hera to worry because Sabine is like Hera's daughter, basically.
yeah,
Uh, then after that, pretty much the rest of the episode takes place on the planet Peridia, which is the planet in this new galaxy. Morgan identifies this as the homeworld of her Dathomiri ancestors. So we meet with the Night Sisters, who make their live action debut here. They all look pretty much exactly how they do in the Clone Wars. They're a little bit of an Easter egg here. They're kind of made to particularly resemble Mother Talzin, the main one. She was voiced by Barbara Goodson
yeah,
in the Clone Wars, and they can actually sense Jedi in Sabine. We get this big thing where we get more character development. You could probably honestly say that this episode is mostly about Baylon and his character development. So he apparently talks about how he watched everything he ever knew burn during the Great Jedi Purge and the Rise of the Empire. And pretty much he's sick of seeing all these constant, like, one thing falls and something comes up. Like he saw the Republic fall and the Empire rise up, and now he's seen the Empire fall and he's seen the New Republic rise up. So he wants to align himself with Thrawn so that he can just end that circle of one thing rising and another thing falling.
yeah,
Uh, which, yeah, that makes sense. And honestly, when he said that, like, he watched everything that he knew burn, when the Jedi were wiped out, I honestly kind of feel sorry for the guy a little bit. Like,
yeah. And like, he's not a bad person. Like, he's not somebody that you want to see defeated.
mm-hmm.
Like, I have empathy for what he went through as a child or a young Padawan learner. I am interested to know who his master would have been, though.
Yeah. I mean, like, Baylon might be my favorite new character in this whole thing because
Oh, he is amazing.
he like, even when he had that big confrontation with Ahsoka, like, he doesn't want to kill Ahsoka. He literally said, "Hey, I mean, we don't have to fight. You can join me, and I mean, I'll help you." Like, I mean,
Yeah,
there's nothing. Like, he legitimately doesn't. I don't think that he thinks he's evil. I think that he legitimately thinks that he's doing something good
he thinks
for
he's
the
doing
galaxy.
right by the world. That's all he's thinking, you know?
And I mean, and when you make a villain like that and you actually make their motivation understandable and you can convey to us that they don't think that they're evil, like, those are some of the most amazing villains in, like, any work of fiction.
Yeah. I mean, there's also the scene later on in the episode. We're jumping a little bit ahead, but there's a scene where Balin and Sin are on the planet Peridia, and they're talking about the events of the past and the future. And Balin says, Sin, you're not just a Padawan, you're much more than that. I'm building us to be basically the saviors of our galaxy, is what I got out of it.
Yeah, which also kind of gives me the idea that, like, he genuinely respects Shin and wouldn't send Shin to do something that he wouldn't do. Like, he's not going
Yeah,
to send Shin to her death
yeah.
or something like that.
But I feel like Sin is more unhinged than he
Yeah.
thinks. So I'm a little concerned about his trust in her.
Yeah, all the good things I say about Baylon don't apply to Shin. She just comes off as like legitimately crazy. Like
Yeah,
she's
no,
something
see,
evil.
yeah.
Like I get the feeling that if Baylon wasn't there, she would have killed Sabine the minute she got the chance.
If Baylon wasn't there, she might have become like the next generation Inquisitor.
Yeah. But anyway, so Thrawn arrives at the tower that they're waiting at. He still has his Star Destroyer Chimera, which has been his flagship. The Star Destroyer Chimera has basically been Thrawn's flagship in every iteration. Even like he first got it when he became captain in the Thrawn novel.
Yep.
It's his ship in Rebels, and it was also his ship in basically all of his appearances in Legends as well.
Yeah.
Um, so he confronts Sabine and he offers to take her, well, show her where Ezra is. Although he warns that they're going to be stranded when they leave Peridia. So yeah, he's pretty much true to Sabine, true to his character. You know, he's not. I don't know. You don't really get the vibe that like he's doing something truly evil. Like he's playing a fair game of chess in this match. So after Sabine fights off some bandits while riding on one of these creatures called a howler, uh, she, although we find out that apparently Thrawn is actually, you know, chasing her with Baylon and Shin, and he's also going to ambush her with troops a little bit later.
Yeah.
Uh, Sabine encounters these hermit crab like creatures called Noddies. And by the way, the Howlers and Noddies, they're not creatures that have appeared in any other Star Wars thing. Because keep in mind, this is supposed to be a planet outside of the galaxy. So, and they've not appeared in Legends material either. So these types of creatures are all like 100% original in this
Yeah.
show. Um, so they take him to their camp, and we see Jabba the Hutt. Okay, actually, no, we do see Jabba the Hutt. Ezra.
Yeah.
Ezra makes his live action debut here, and he uh, he and Sabine reunite, and you know they take, of course, the heartfelt jabs and the hugs. You know, this guy, I can't remember what the actor's name is, but
I don't know.
he gets Ezra down perfectly. Like this is what I would imagine Ezra
Oh
would
yeah.
be now that he's a fully grown adult. Uh, and and they have him like look exactly how he looks too. Like I noticed that he still has that scar that he got after the encounter with the Grand Inquisitor at the end of season one.
Oh, he did have a scar?
Yeah, I noticed that.
I didn't notice. That's good to know though.
Um, and Ezra is celebrating the fact that he can go home, but Sabine looks like she's distraught over what's going to happen when they go home. And the episode ends with the Night Sisters revealing that Ahsoka's ship is approaching, and Thrawn orders Morgan to attack the ship and eliminate her.
Yeah. So, Nate, before you get into your post recap thoughts and review, I do want to start the discussion on where I'm landing right now
Mm-hmm.
because I'm going to need some help here deciding where I'm going to end up landing on this episode. As I have, like I mentioned to you offline,
Yeah.
I have conflicting views on the episode that I'm trying to reconcile into like one straight path that I can say, okay, this is what I feel about the episode.
Okay.
Okay. So, on one hand, I absolutely loved every aspect of this episode. I thought this is great movement for all of our characters. We gain a whole lot of information we didn't have before, including one thing that we didn't really mention in the recap is Baylon reveals that all the Jedi that come after the Order was eliminated are known as Boken Jedi.
Yep.
And I found that very interesting because Boken is the word for a wooden sword in Japanese.
Which
And
what did we see Ahsoka and Sabine training with
the
in that like
Boken,
episode? Yeah.
yeah. So it comes full circle because, Luke, Ezra, um, Sabine, they're all they're all learning from people who were part of the Jedi Order previously, but they're not able to learn in that environment, and so they're learning the bone minimum basics, I think. So to have them called a Boken Jedi is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
But back on my original train of thought before I got on my sidetrack, um, I thought Sabine's character development was really good in that she feels the guilt of what she did at the end. Like she's feeling distraught, like you said, about what's to come, because she has a huge part to play in what could be happening, and if it does go south, fingers could be pointed at her for, you know, leading them to the new galaxy by giving them the star map information and all that.
Yep.
So Sabine will feel very guilty, and that's why she's distraught. Now, I'm having a hard time dealing with the fact that Sabine is so cold to this possibility prior to meeting Ezra. Like, Sabine doesn't give a single crap up until then about what's going to happen to that galaxy back home. She's just concerned with finding Ezra. And while I understand all the loss she has gone through with Kanan, with her family on Mandalore, and just the Mandalorian plight in general, and everything else that's happened, and then losing Ezra on top of it all, I get that she's desperate to get some sense of family back. But I also have a hard time believing that the Sabine Wren that we left at the end of season 4 of Rebels would have been okay with doing the things that she's done so far in Ahsoka the TV show.
I see what you're saying. If I had to think though, like, okay, she only seems to be distraught when Ezra says he can't wait to go home. Part of me wonders, like, maybe the idea of her going back never really crossed her mind because she only ever had her sight, because like she was very short sighted, because like, she's lost her whole family, so she wants to have a sense of family back. So the only thing that's been on her mind is getting Ezra back. Well,
Yeah.
now she has Ezra back, but she probably, like, keep in mind she hasn't seen Ezra for like 3 years, so she probably didn't think she would ever get Ezra back.
Yeah.
Now that she does, all of a sudden it's, oh yeah, I had to get Ezra back, I made this really big decision. Yeah, I kind of forgot about that.
Well, and
Here's
her
my
big decision has big impacts that Ezra will not be okay with, like leaving Ahsoka for dead, basically.
yeah,
And I don't know, even taking this out of the equation, even her attitude towards the Howler, it felt a little rough and cruel in a way. Because that Howler is just it's a dumb creature. It doesn't have any real sentience to it.
yeah. That seemed like
And
it was trying too hard to be like a comic relief scene.
well, it failed because I didn't feel humor to what she said, like, oh, well, you ran at the first sign of danger. Yeah, the Howler's gonna run at the first sign of danger because it's scared to get blasted because it's scary.
Yeah,
Bright lights, big noise. I mean, that's enough to scare any animal. So I didn't really care for her treatment of the Howler in the beginning. Like
yeah. I didn't care much for that either.
it would be going against the very nature of what Ezra would have wanted. And that's a constant theme I keep coming back to here is everything Sabine's done is against what Ezra would have wanted. Like Ezra came to this galaxy with Thrawn to prevent Thrawn from doing the unspeakable to the Empire and solidifying the Empire's hold on the galaxy even further. But Sabine throws all that away by going there in the first place.
Well, maybe it's also that, like, the more I think about it, like, I have this noted in my in the Easter eggs. So the very first line that Ezra says before Sabine sees him is, quote, "I knew I could count on you," unquote, which is kind of in reference to the very last thing he said to Sabine. And this is in Rebels, not in his message that we see
Yeah.
him, where he's counting on Sabine to, like, see his mission through. Well, his mission was to make sure that Thrawn goes away and never comes back. So maybe, like, like it's also hit her, well, if this, and maybe this is why she's very distraught. Like, maybe she's realized, I've kind of failed Ezra, because I'm kind of indirectly enabling Thrawn to return, which is the exact opposite of what Ezra wanted. And maybe that plays into, like, why she seems so distraught about going home.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. The next episode is gonna be very gonna have its hands full trying to revolve with that.
Yeah, that's a very big concern of like how Sabine will come to terms with what she's done, especially when she's come face to face with Ahsoka again. Because at the very least, Hu Yang is not gonna let it go.
Yeah, Hu Yang, definitely not.
Ahsoka might, because she's above all that and she went through a really big journey of her own. But Hu Yang is not gonna let her off the hook when he learns what she did to get where she did.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't feel like 2 episodes is enough to, like, really, like, contain, unless they do, like, two, like, like, very long episodes. Like, I don't know. Maybe they should consider giving this show a season 2.
I think they will. I
Yeah.
think so. Looking at the Star Wars plan going forward that I read a couple of months ago, it seems like all paths lead to a Filoni movie. Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, maybe Skeleton Crew fits into it as well. I don't quite know about that. Information on Skeleton Crew is kind of sparse at the moment, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But all paths lead to a Filoni movie. But I don't think, even if the writer strike had not been going on right now, and we were in a time of, you know, more peace, I don't think they were even ready to discuss a timeline for the movie coming out next year or the year after. I think that movie is set out like 3 or 4 years from right now,
Yeah.
because we're gonna probably get Mando season 4, we're gonna probably get Ahsoka season 2, and we might get some other companion TV show to fill in the gaps, like something to do with the New Republic Fighters TV show that got canceled.
Yeah.
Um, so I think there is a very good likelihood that the Ahsoka story does not end in 2 weeks from now. It'll continue on after.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think all paths are going to lead to an Heir to the Empire movie.
Which would be absolutely amazing.
I don't know too much about it, but that's what everyone's been kind of saying, is that we have a lot of um, signs of it right now.
And honestly, it would be perfect timing too, because, um, like, actually, yeah. Now that I remember, the original Thrawn trilogy, with the first book, Heir to the Empire, that takes place 5 years after Return of a Jedi.
Yep.
This is around that time period. So, I mean, if they canonize the Thrawn trilogy like that, that would just be absolutely amazing. And honestly, it would work a lot better than it did in Legends, because, we have all of this other stuff that Thrawn has done with his novels, and
The
what he did
books,
in Rebels.
yeah.
So Thrawn is a much more fleshed out villain. Like
Yeah, I don't know too much about Thrawn in the Legends continuity,
I mean,
but I
I don't know much either, honestly.
but I will say what I've read in 1.5 books of Thrawn so far, he is really well written. I mean, also Vader in the second book is really well written, and we see more of the personal side of Vader that we don't see in
Hmm.
any live action or animated series all that much. But that's neither here nor there. But just something to throw out that yeah,
Yeah.
Thrawn is a great character, and he's being given a lot to work with here.
And speaking of which, like, what do we think of Thrawn? Because he makes his live action debut here. And by the way, guys, he's played by Lars Mikkelsen, who voiced him in Rebels. So much like Bo Katan and Ryder Rosati, we have another character who is played in live action by the actor that voiced them in the animated series.
Yeah, I thought his personality was pretty on point with what I'm reading in the book. Like it, when he finds out Ahsoka's on the way, what is the first thing he wants? He wants background information on Ahsoka, who was her master, what has her history been like, where has she been? All he wants all that info because just like in Rebels and just like in the book, he wants to study the true extent to his enemies to make a calibrated decision on how to best combat them. And reading the second book, Nate, I'm very interested in knowing how Thrawn doesn't already know that Anakin was Ahsoka's master, given he spends a lot of time with Vader in the second book. And while it hasn't been confirmed yet, we're in the point I'm at in the book, I feel like he's gonna know by the end of it that Anakin and Vader are the same person.
Yeah. Although, like, and the Wikipedia article on this episode kind of points out how, like, the book you're reading is Thrawn Alliances, right?
Yeah,
Apparently, uh, Ahsoka was mentioned by name to Thrawn in that book, but some people are speculating that maybe he does know that Ahsoka was Anakin's Padawan. But either again, there's always been speculation. Does he know that Vader was Anakin's, like, and Anakin are the same people? And but even if they do, maybe he wants to know more about Ahsoka's relationship with Anakin, and I think
yeah.
that's probably the best way they can make sense out of it.
That's what I'm kind of thinking. Yeah, I need to finish reading that book pretty quick.
Yeah, and I mean that can't be an error because I do know that Filoni. I mean, Filoni's not always perfect with keeping up with continuity in the books. Like, there's if he was behind Tales of a Jedi, there is one error that although if I do more research, maybe I could do that. But I do know that he and Timothy Zahn, who Timothy Zahn does the Thrawn books, I do know that he keeps in some contact with Timothy Zahn because, like I said, I mean, one of Thrawn's very first lines in season 3 of Rebels is a reference to the climax of the original Thrawn novel. So
Yeah,
I feel that Filoni does work closely with Timothy Zahn at least. So I guess maybe that's what he was going for because I don't know, like Dave Filoni, if you if you've seen interviews with this guy, like this is a guy who probably pays more attention to continuity than George Lucas himself. So that's not a detail that would just fly over Dave Filoni's head.
now, one thing about the Lars Mikkelsen portrayal of Thrawn here that people are kind of calling historical for Star Wars is while other people have voiced the character and then gone on to play them in live action, looking at you, Bo Katan, this is the first time we get a villain introduced only in the animated TV show. Then that villain comes to the live action screen with the same actor. Normally, it's the other way around with James Earl with the
Is it
Vader.
though? I don't remember Bo-Katan being.
But Bo-Katan's not a villain.
Oh, oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
Bo-Katan is more of an anti-hero.
yeah, and I find that to be a very weak celebration to have. But
Mm.
if people want to harp on that being something really big and like different or unique, have at it, I guess.
I mean, I'm good with what with Lars Mikkelsen voice doing it because I mean he gets the voice of Thrawn down good, but I really I mean Lars Mikkelsen is a great actor, but I don't know like I don't know if like Thrawn looks as and again I mean he's a bit older, so I guess I can kind of let it do it, but Lars Mikkelsen doesn't look as intimidating as Thrawn. Like I don't know, a lot of people say that he looks like Elon Musk, and my wife actually says that he looks like the South Korean president. But like,
I need Google right now. Hang on.
that's what my wife keeps saying. But yeah, I mean, I think I said this in our Rebels review. I really wish that Thrawn, and again, I get why they couldn't do it because he already voiced the Grand Inquisitor. But yeah, I think that Jason Isaacs should have voiced Thrawn and he would play Thrawn in live action because I don't know. I mean, have you seen Jason Isaacs play Lucius Malfoy? He can be one of the most intimidating people ever.
Yes, I've seen the Harry Potter movies, Nate. I am a Potterhead.
Right, of course.
um,
I mean, even
yeah,
if you've seen other movies, like he plays this. It's not a great movie. I think it's absolutely stupid. But it's this Mel Gibson movie called The Patriot, where he plays like this intimidating British captain. Like he's intimidating in that movie too. So
okay. Yeah, I've not seen it. I don't think.
yeah, well, you don't have to. It's a stupid movie, but um, uh, But to be honest, if I'm gonna, kind of transition into my own thoughts, like you kind of already said what we said about Sabine. I feel like this episode focusing on Sabine is where it's the weaker parts. But like I said when we were going over the recap, like what makes this episode the strongest is that the fleshing out that they do with Baylon, not so much Shin, but like Baylon, like this is almost stuff that seems like on par with like how they flesh out Count Dooku to make him seem like a much more
Yeah.
believable villain in Tales of a Jedi. Like I don't know, like Balin might be my like, and I really hope that they have him go out in a really great way, or something happens. Like I don't even know if I want to see this guy die or get defeated because I kind of almost low key feel for him, even if he is horribly misguided with his motivations.
Well, the issue is the real life actor is no longer with us, so
I know.
we
Yeah.
can't have a continuation of Balin's story beyond Ahsoka. So I hope whatever his story is in the next two episodes, it gets wrapped up and we get some kind of sense of closure with it. Because I don't think they can really do anything more with him now.
Yeah. May Ray Stevenson rest in peace.
Yep. Now I will say that all those scenes with Balin are probably some of the best stuff I've in this episode for me as well.
Yeah.
Just getting all the info about like what the Jedi Order was and what it is now, like that the typings of Jedi was a very interesting take on it. And it makes me wonder what other types of Jedi did we have categories for? Like we had the Boken, obviously, and then we might have had, there's other types within even the Order. I'm kind of curious about now learning more info on that.
Yeah. I don't know if there's been other types like this. Like when I was looking at like some like references regarding that. Like this is the first time that a Boken Jedi has been, stated in any form of continuity. So that could probably be a new term.
Yeah,
Because I haven't found any terms for like other types of Jedi.
yeah, nor have I. I think that's like something Filoni's building up to do something with later.
Yep.
And also, the other really cool part of this episode is seeing Night Sisters in live action.
Yeah. Yeah, those are really cool. And
Yeah,
I really love how this kind of fleshes out their story with because like them be like I mean, I know, but I kind of spoke up, like this new galaxy that, we're going to, like, introducing us to other creatures like the Yuuzhan Vong and the Sairu, which, I mean, they didn't do that, which is fine. I'm cool with this just being a Night Sister type of world because it makes sense for the Night Sisters to be from a completely different galaxy because they use the Force, but their understandings of the Force are way different from how the Jedi use the Force. So it makes sense for them to be like from another galaxy, honestly.
yeah. And then also, we do get the sense that it's possible, at the very least, that a lot of species and people might have originated in this galaxy because I feel like Peridia is very strong in the Force. And one of the YouTubers I was listening to the other day, I forget which one it was now, they were calling out that Peridia is stronger in the Force than anywhere else we've seen so far in canon. And that might be because this is the origin point of where the first Jedi came from alongside the first Night Sister. And it might also be the galaxy where Yoda's people come from, and maybe it's where Yoda comes from in general.
Yeah, even in they have never really gone so much into the detail with Yoda. Now, I do know that he appears in the High Republic novels, which I'm going to get started on pretty soon, but yeah, they don't really talk too much even in Legends about like what Yoda's training was.
Yeah,
When
so
he was
it
a
makes me
Padawan.
kind of wonder if the reason we even have Grogu in the Mandalorian TV show to begin with is to kind of feed into this other galaxy concept and say that maybe the people of Yoda are in another galaxy, and that's why we never see anyone beyond Yoda and Yaddle before now.
Yeah. The only other one that I know, and even then, I don't know if this is going to be. Maybe it'll be canonized when they do the re-releases of the Knights of the Old Republic video games. But there was a Jedi Master in the original Knights of the Old Republic game called Vandar, who was the species of Yoda, and he was actually voiced by the same actor who voices Yoda in most video games and animated shows. But that's the only other person of Yoda species that I can recall. And they might change that. I hear that the Knights of the Old Republic video game is going to largely be the same story when they re-release it for canon.
Hmm.
But I don't know. Like that's the only other one. And again, it's not even canon unless they decide not to change that one character in the
Yeah,
video game. But yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, seeing the Night Sisters in live action is just great because I mean, the Night Sisters are, a very just a fascinating thing. I mean, obviously we have Asajj Ventress.
yeah.
If there's also, I don't know how far Riz is in Fallen Order, but there's a Night Sister character in that video game that's a very interesting character named Marin.
I've read
Uh,
about her, but I haven't seen her in the game yet.
yeah, and I hear that she gets expanded on in the um in the sequel to the video game, which I'm hoping to play soon as I can get a PS5 pretty soon. But I am going to be playing that game. And by the way, guys, Riz and I are going to take a look at least Fallen Order. I've
Yeah.
played the game twice, so um, but so yeah, I mean, just seeing them in live action now is really cool, and I hope that I kind of it's just cool to see that it translated there. And not only that, but I'm really hoping that possibly in the next episode, if only just to give people like us some things to kind of go crazy about. There's a point where Thrawn agrees to load Night Sister cargo on his ship, and there's like caskets. Are those bodies of dead Night Sisters? Because if you've watched Clone Wars and if you've played Fallen Order, you'll know that the Night Sisters sure do love to resurrect their own kind and send zombie Night Sisters at people. So could we get that in live action? Because that would be totally awesome if we could do that.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a possibility. And it also leads way to a popular theory that Thrawn's night troopers that he has are actually undead soldiers.
Yeah, that was like uh that apparently would be similar. There's apparently a book, I haven't read it, but I did hear it be mentioned a lot, that there's a book called Death Troopers,
Yep.
is where it's a Legends book now, but there's apparently like it's all about a group of like zombie stormtroopers. So
Yeah.
uh,
It was a way to make horror stories fit into the Star Wars universe. And it's inspired by stuff like Alien and The Signing.
yeah,
I've done some reading into this book because I want to read it.
yeah, it sounds interesting.
Yeah.
And the one other thing I want to bring up about this, I understand if they can't really go into much focus in this because they have to focus on a Thrawn wanting to return, but for this one planet in the new galaxy that we get to see, I get a lot of Tolkien inspirations in this. For those who don't know the nerd language, Tolkien, J.R. Tolkien, the guy who created the Lord of the Rings books,
Hmm.
like, I don't know, the whole look of this planet just looks like it was inspired by Middle Earth. Like, the tower that the Night Sisters are on. It reminded me, especially the top of the tower. It reminds me of a Saruman's tower, or Thank, that he lives in Isengard. And the Howler, those kind of look like the wargs, the wolves of Isengard that they have to fight in the Two Towers. That's what it reminded me of. And um, Star Wars Explained, I was watching one of his videos, and I kind of agree with this. The Naughty, those hermit crab like creatures, somebody said their clothes kind of look like hobbit clothes, which I can kind of,
I love the Naughty. They're so great.
yeah. And even their ability to like hide under a rock, like that actually reminded some people of I don't know how many people who are listening to this are familiar with Lord of the Rings, but there's a scene in the Two Towers, and it's in both versions, theatrical or extended, where Frodo and Sam are just outside of the Black Gate, and they have to hide from like a passing army. So like they pull their elvish cloaks over them, and it makes them look like a rock. Well, these hermit crab like creatures are able to hide to make it look like they're just rocks on the ground. Very
Yeah.
similar to this. So I feel like this world uh, was inspired a lot by like just Middle Earth and Tolkien lore, which I'm all for because this is supposed to be a new galaxy with a completely different look to it. So yeah, I mean, I totally dig it. I do feel like I'm on a world that I wouldn't normally be in like the actual Star Wars universe.
Yeah, and like I see where you're coming from on that. I do think that we could have had a little bit more, like, I don't want to say like drama leading up to their entry to the new galaxy, but the way they jumped into hyperspace and then they popped back up in this new galaxy, it felt like they just popped up anywhere in the current galaxy too. Like it didn't really seem like that big of a jump,
Mhm.
minus the fact that they had this giant ring, right? But
Yeah.
I would have expected a little bit more going on there. Like maybe a visual of how that transition looks from one galaxy to the other. How do you portray that, you know?
Hmm.
And I don't think we really got that in the opening scene here.
But I mean, maybe they could do that next time in the
When they're
next
hopping
episode
back.
when, well, Either that, or maybe like they could show Ahsoka and the Purgles entering the new galaxy.
Yeah, and that'd be great if they can do that. Because I just want to see like what how how do we differentiate, because Peridia could have been any planet in our current galaxy and nothing would have changed.
Well, yeah, but I feel like with them like establishing that like this is where the Night Sisters came from, I feel like
Yeah.
having it come from a new galaxy does work with.
Oh yeah, definitely it makes sense. Like that all makes sense. I'm just talking about the visual representation of the traveling that I want more of that to
Yeah.
see it. Let's see. There's something else I want to touch on. What was it? We talked about the Night Sisters. We talked about the Death Trooper novel. Uh, did you talk about Hugh Yang's stories? And have we gotten into that?
No, we haven't.
Okay. So in the beginning of the episode, when Ahsoka and Hugh Yang are traveling, he makes mention of the old stories that he used to tell at the Jedi Temple, and before, like, and so Ahsoka says, "Yeah, I'd like to hear one." After initially, you know, them just talking about everything, and he begins it with a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yep.
Dot dot dot, and that's where it kind of transitions to the Sabine stuff.
That was so perfect.
Yeah.
So you were talking about how he might be referring to something from like the certain point of view books, but
Oh
I
yeah.
but for me, like, and I'm kind of going off of some of what Star Wars explained, like, so Ahsoka says so. History of the Galaxy, parts 1, 2, and 3, and Ahsoka says part 1 is the best. Well, here's the thing, and everybody who knows about Star Wars knows this. There's 3 Star Wars trilogies, and there's every single Star Wars fan, and I'm not talking about people who like only watch like people like us who watch the cartoons. If you are just a Star Wars fan who's watched the movies, every single Star Wars fan, and you know this, do not deny it. You have the people who think that the original trilogy is the best, the people who think the prequels are the best, and then there's that very small group of people who probably think the sequel trilogy is the best. And what do all of those people have in common? They passionately and like with vehement passion defend the idea that their trilogy is the best. And I feel like Ahsoka is one of those people who just thinks that part 1 is the best and will passionately defend that. And knowing Filoni, that just seems like too perfect of a line to think that that was just a casual thing. That was an intentional joke on his part.
Now, do you think when they say part one, do you think they're referencing the original trilogy or are they referencing the prequel trilogy?
That's what I don't know.
Because I want to say that Ahsoka is calling the Clone War era
Yeah,
the best part because that's
because
where
that was her
she's,
era.
yeah,
And Dave Filoni grew up like, well, I don't know if he grew up, but like he was like a die-hard fan of the prequels. Like the dude showed up to the premiere of Revenge of the Sith cosplaying as Plo Koon. So
that's awesome.
yeah. Yeah, by the way, Dave Filoni is a huge fanboy of Plo Koon, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. So which is why Plo Koon has a much bigger role in like a bunch of Clone Wars episodes.
Yeah.
But so I would imagine maybe he's referring to part 1 as the prequels, but maybe he's referring to the original trilogy. That would be a hot debate.
It'd be very interesting. And I'd like to see Filoni come out and explain that in like an interview or something.
Yeah. But what was it that you were talking about with a certain point of view thing?
I'm still trying to find. I've been looking at for it on the side, but I'll probably have a better answer for us on the episode 7 podcast. But I read somewhere prior to buying a copy of a certain point of view, part 1, that one of the short stories in that novel is set with some kind of race of people that felt very akin to the Watcher in Marvel. How he's just kind of there to witness history,
Uh-huh.
and this guy is chronicling the history of what's going on in the galaxy, and I think he might be chronicling like the history of the galaxies part 1, 2, and 3 that we're talking about. But I can't find the reference again. I have to go digging back in my notes. It's somewhere in one of my many, many tabs on my computer. So, but no, I think that's part of a reference that we're getting from that novel, but I need to go read. But yeah, that's part of it.
Oh,
But yeah, I'm going to be looking into it a lot more, and I'm going to definitely have it for next time so that we can discuss that in more detail because that's very interesting to me.
yeah. Was there anything else to mention?
Let's see.
Just overall
Ah-
thoughts, I guess.
Ahsoka's an amazing TV show. I love it to death. Um, it's great to see Ezra back. I'm very interested to see how Ezra will react to all the news, especially to know that he's an uncle
Mm-hmm.
because he wouldn't have known that Jason existed.
Yeah.
So I really want to see that first meeting of Ezra and Jason when they get back to the real galaxy. Now,
And could they have Zeb just make a cameo at the end?
could he please just pop up out of nowhere, please?
Yeah, I don't know what the I still need to finish Mandalorian season 3. I do know that he appears there. I'm not sure what the circumstances are on how he shows up, but yeah, I would just love to see Zeb.
Yeah, I think so. Our good friend John Russo, here's our name drop.
What was the nickname that he wanted to be called?
Hold up. I gotta go find it. But
Yeah.
while I go dig it up real quick, um, he has written up a complete timeline of everything going on in Star Wars post Return of the Jedi until the sequel movies begin. And he sent me a copy of it by email the other day. And part of what got me and him talking about this was there's a scene in Mandalorian where Grogu's looking out the window of their spaceship and he can see a glimpse of a Purgle. And John thinks that the Purgle that Grogu is seeing is actually the Purgle that's taking Ahsoka and Hugh Hang to the new galaxy.
Oh.
So he was showing me the how it fits in because I was kind of being dense and I didn't understand how it fit in. So we were talking about it for a little while a couple of days ago, and that's how it came up.
Yeah, well, we should trust in the wisdom, and I just found the name, so I'm going to say it. We need to trust in the wisdom of Grandmaster Funky J.
Funky J, yeah, there we go. I had to go look it up. From now on, we're gonna call him Grandmaster Funky J. It's a thing.
Yeah, I mean, if that guy's doing a timeline, like that guy's putting quite a bit of effort into this stuff. So we got to try. He is truly a grandmaster.
Yeah, he is. And like this timeline is just really well detailed out, and I really want to. We're gonna pull him onto the show at some point after we take a break from the weekly podcast thing, and just have a talk about the timeline with him and see if he'd be down to explain his views because there's a lot of detail that he put into it.
Yeah.
Like I feel like he's done like deep dives into every episode of every series to get this timeline to make sense.
What would we give this episode? What would you give this episode out of 10?
I would probably say an 8 or an 8.5 because this felt like a setup to the next episode with Thrawn and the um him executing the plan that he wants to have executed.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 9 just because the stuff with Baylon is just really like hitting me with how they're making him a great
Yeah.
villain. So and I
Anti-hero.
yeah, I'm a sucker for when they manage to make like villain characters not seem so evil. That's why I can watch this one particular episode of Tales of the Jedi over and over again and just constantly love it. And I know, but I brought that up in like two straight podcast people, but I'm gonna go into detail when Riz and I do Tales of a Jedi because
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about with that one episode, and I think Riz knows what episode I'm talking about.
I think I do.
Yeah, but yeah, I really like Baywin. He might be one of my new fit. He might be one of my. I don't know if I would put him ahead of Thrawn just yet, but
Nope.
he's maybe slowly getting to where he's never going to be in front of Thrawn, but he could be on equal level with Thrawn just with his motivation alone. I don't think he'll ever be better than Thrawn just because I've read an entire novel detailing Thrawn's backstory, so that's really hard to compete against. But he's
Try reading the entire trilogy like I'm doing right now. That's some intense stuff.
yeah, exactly.
And then there's another trilogy after it, apparently, that I have to go read that goes even
Hmm.
further back in time.
But yeah, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10, and I'm looking forward to seeing what these last two episodes are gonna give us.
Yeah.
And
So, what are some expectations you have for the next episode? What are you hoping to see happen?
I'm hoping I'm not really sure. Like I'm so Thrawn and Ezra are appearing at roughly the exact period that I thought that they were gonna show up. I thought that they would show up at either 6 or 7, and they showed up in 6. So,
Yeah.
which yeah, I'm happy that they didn't wait too late to bring him in. I think they brought Ezra and Thrawn in at the exact right time.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that maybe we could spend like these next two episodes maybe next episode we can just have like one big thing where like they're trying to prevent Thrawn from returning to the main galaxy, but then they fail, and then like the next episode is all about them trying to, and then the next episode is all about them like trying to return to the main galaxy and possibly setting up for a future story on like what's going to happen, because there is no way I would expect them to like just have Thrawn be completely killed off or something by the end of the show.
He's not Cad Bane.
Yeah, of course. I would, I would probably, I mean, if they do that, I don't know how I would feel about that. I guess I would be fine with it, but I know that Dave Filoni's probably not going to do that. So but I would hope that they could set up something to be like a potential Thrawn trilogy from the Legends, where the New Republic has to face Thrawn, and kind of bringing the Empire up to a rise, because I think that sets up for a perfect story where the New Republic feels complacent. They feel like they don't have to deal with much of anything because the Imperial Remnant, that's what Mon Mothma called it in the previous episode, the Imperial Remnant doesn't pose much of a threat. I'm legitimately hoping that we get like a big setup for something in a future series or a movie where we do have to see what something would look like, where a war between the Imperial Remnant that now has a legitimate leader on its side,
Yeah.
that what threat that can pose to the New Republic.
And I'm kind of hoping that they can at least, if they don't answer the question outright, they can at least hint at how Thrawn's interactions going forward impact the sequel trilogy. Because we do have, in 25 years from this point, the sequel trilogy beginning.
Yep.
So I'm very curious to see how they're going to handle that aspect of it. Because it feels like we're building this great story, but I don't want to have it be hampered by, oh, well, here's where the sequel trilogy kind of fits in, and then we got to start trying to solve, well, why isn't Thrawn part of the sequel trilogy? Why isn't Ahsoka present for any of the activities when Luke has gone missing and all that? Like, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered by the end of this in some way or another.
And I just want to say this to like all the just to finish this podcast, and I don't mean this to, I'm not trying to like alienate or gatekeep on the fandom here, because so there are people who are saying that they think that this show is great, but it still sucks because it ultimately leads to the sequel trilogy. And I just want to say this, guys. Okay, I get it. The sequel trilogy has problems. I have issues with it. I'm not going to defend those movies and pretend like they're great movies, but just because this show has to connect to it, it's trying to fix things. Can we appreciate this show for what it is? Because I was reading a comment on a social media page like, this is a legitimately good show. Like, I can understand why people didn't like Kenobi. I can see the issues of Kenobi. I don't see how anyone can dislike this show. And this is a show that I feel like Filoni is making for like all Star Wars fans, like the people who love like the lightsaber fights, like who only watch the movies, and it's a show that you can genuinely enjoy even if you haven't watched the animated shows. Can we
Yeah.
enjoy this, and can we just not be Star Wars fans? Well, can we be Star Wars fans but not be Star Wars fans? If you
Can
know
we
what?
be good Star Wars fans and not be toxic?
Yeah, exactly. I get it. The sequel trilogy rubbed us a lot of the wrong way, and I get that there's going to be issues with that, but give it a chance, because, I mean, you guys probably hated the Clone Wars series because it had to lead to the prequel era, and then now everyone hails the Clone Wars as being something that's even better than any of the Star Wars movies. And
I
there's
mean, they're not
a lot of
wrong.
fans that are like that.
Yeah.
So I just want to say that, and I'm not throwing any shade. I'm not trying to gatekeep. I get. I'm gonna say that I sympathize with your grievances, so I'm not even calling you out here. I'm just saying enjoy this show for what it is, and not worry about the fact that it's connected to a sequel
Yeah.
trilogy.
No, they're gonna solve it. Like Filoni did the same thing with Clone Wars. Like if you look back, nobody liked the prequels growing up. We all thought the prequels were terrible. But now that we have Rebels and Clone Wars and Filoni, this prequel trilogy is actually pretty decent, minus Episode One.
Yeah,
I mean, they can't fix everything. Episode One is still kind of garbage because of Jar Jar's involvement, but it's still pretty dang good in my opinion.
yeah. But any other closing thoughts you want to give?
No, I think we've run the hour. So,
All right. Well, parts 7 and 8 can't get here fast enough.
nope. We need a time machine still.
Well, anyway, so that wraps up this podcast. We thank you guys so much for checking it out. Like we keep saying, Ahsoka's great until proven otherwise. Although at this point, I don't think it's ever going to be proven otherwise.
No, they can't.
Uh, so we're going to keep doing our weekly podcasts of these next 2 weeks for Ahsoka's part 7 and 8. We're still I'm not sure if we've like officially said what we're going to be doing after that, but we are going to be doing reviews of other animated Star Wars shows. Like, of course, we're going to do Clone Wars and Bad Batch,
Yeah.
probably Resistance. I have a bunch of novel reviews backlogged, and I am trying to finish Shadows of the Sith. I've just had a couple of things happen in my personal life that have prevented me from doing a bit of reading, but I'm going to get to Shadow of the Sith for you guys. Uh, so we thank you guys so much for checking us out. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment down below with your thoughts on Ahsoka thus far. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel if you're not already subscribed. If you're listening to us on Spotify or iTunes, first of all, we love you guys. We thank you guys for checking us out there. Be sure to give us 5 stars or a good review, at least on Spotify. I'm not sure how the rating system works on iTunes,
Same
but
thing.
oh, okay. Send us feedback at animesecrets.org. And all that. And, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all our social media pages. And that's pretty much it. Once again, we thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to us. And we will see you guys next time when we take a look at part 7 of Ahsoka. But until that time, you guys stay safe. We love you. And may the Force be with you.